Good evening, Council. May I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? Councillor Garwood, Councillor Fisher, that the special meeting of the Council of Township of Springwater of April 22nd, 2025 come to order at 5:30 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Councillor, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Not seeing any. I will now call on Interim CA O'Haron to introduce the topic.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a follow-on topic from the meeting that was held on April 5th, and it's staff reporting back to council and to the public on proposals for cleanup of brush that has been brought from properties onto the public boulevard. This is particular to the settlement areas, as the township has ongoing work to clean up the brush and fallen trees on the rural roads. The report has been mostly, and well, I would say pretty much entirely drafted by the Director of Public Works in terms of his investigations into methodologies for the cleanup. And with that, I would turn it over to the Director.
Director Harvey?
To you, Mayor Cog, and the rest of council. Further to my staff report there, I'd like to just highlight a few things in there, specifically the background, and of course the purpose was to look at some potential methodologies and probable cost to undertake this more, I'll call more urban or settlement area cleanup. I think you'll notice in the report, I outlined the efforts of the county at this point, and this has been somewhat fluid. And up till last Thursday, we got further indication from the county on the extent of the works that they're going to undertake. You'll notice some of the things in my report related to, the ice storm and a website, and the county's been constantly updating that. Some things to note that basically the county's outlined that this week and next week, they're going to be undertaking some of this brush and debris removal in the settlement areas on their normal routes, on their waste management routes, which is good indication for the township because up till now, we didn't have a timeline. They have been in Oro and in Severn doing a lot of the cleanup. So like I said, we were outlined last Thursday evening that they were going to come to Springwater, and they have started in Springwater. The first week is a light brush cleanup, is my understanding from the county. And then next week would be a more larger debris. And if you look in their website, I put a few things in there in quotations of what they're doing. And they outline that, of course, bundling of brush is not required. They outlined some of the tips there to sort your debris. So suffice it to say that the county is coming, and they're coming now. And then obviously I wanted to outline that the efforts that we're doing to date. So I think I'd like to just defer to, I put a little PowerPoint to give council an indication of where we really are and what we've done to date. And then perhaps take a look at going forward, should council want to do any of this settlement area cleanup. A couple of methodologies that I would suggest that Public Works staff and our supervisors have outlined might be an appropriate methodology. And then I put a rough cost, because it's very fluid. We're kind of hoping that with what the county does now, that there may be a whole lot less cleanup than what was originally anticipated. And we have a better timeline as to when the county's coming. So I'd like to just start with the PowerPoint if I could. So we just started, ice storm cleanup, and this is one of the, we're showing a log truck here. We didn't want to show the actual contractors just due to some agreements with regards to showing their licensing. But one of the methodologies is we're using a log truck to do some work in the settlement areas, or we're contemplating that. Next slide, please, Kayla. So this is just the detailed cleanup efforts. This is just an example of what we've seen. This happens to be on Pools Road. This has been our priority post March 30th. The higher volume roads and our critical infrastructure have been our main emphasis to date in cleaning up. We've engaged a number of private arborists and contractors for this rural area assessment and cleanup. Next slide, please. So this shows a bit of the work that we've done in some of these rural areas. This particular piece of equipment, we've been using this grapple hook, and we're loading dump trucks on this to bring to either Gill Road site or to here at the admin center. There's been a lot of broken limbs, and a number of areas will still probably need further requirement of cleanup, but this is our bulk heavy equipment cleanup that we're doing right now. Next slide, please. This outlines a map that we've engaged with the county, as in what areas we've currently done. This is up to, I think, actually this morning. It outlines the green areas, obviously, in the legend show the areas that we've at least done initial cleanups. Like I said, there may be some hanging branches and limbs that will still need further an arborist to come and take because they're quite dangerous. But that sort of outlines the efforts to date, and the yellow is areas that still will need further cleanup pending. So if you look in the bottom right, we also have a total of roads cleaned to date and one still requiring cleanup. So, you know, those numbers are fluid, 303 kilometers roughly, and we have another 148 to do in the rural areas. Next slide. I just thought I'd sort of give council an update up to April 16th of sort of a cost, and this is a little bit after that. I think we're up to probably the 20th on that slide, but we prepared this slide last week. So I outlined contracted services. So to give council an idea, we've got 4 arborist crews with bucket trucks and wood chippers that have been engaged at one point or another. We have a grade all contractor with 2 dump trucks, and we've been using that excavator you saw with 2 dump trucks as well. We had some non-contracted services, obviously help from emergency management with Ministry of Natural Resources doing some of our Simcoe Trail cleanup and some other areas, as well as we had New Tech did some work on Center Vesper area for us as well on Berry Hill Road. So we're very grateful for those non-contracted services. What our crews have done, Public Works have engaged another grade all with a grapple. We've rented these pieces of equipment. We had a chipper rental for yard 2, and obviously we've now purchased a chipper for yard 2 as well that we needed. And we have a chipper, existing chipper we had that's doing some parks cleanup. So the total rough price is around 150 grand is what we spent to date on the rural cleanup. Next slide, please. So what we've done now is gone out and assessed some of the more of the settlement areas and what will be needed. This little slide is obviously one of the approaches we might use for some of the smaller debris. But I think it would just outline, you know, some of the pieces of equipment that will be part of this approach. Next slide, please. So the methodology that we're thinking about, should we want to go into the settlement areas, and I would suggest this be done after the county has done their cleanup, would be to engage that self log truck loader and grapple, and to load probably dump trucks. We're thinking at least 2. That would be the initial large pickup that we would do, similar to what we did in the rural areas. And then what we'd be looking is following that up, this 2-pronged approach would be a chipper truck that you saw there to do a lot of the smaller debris and chip it right into a truck. We obviously can't chip into a ditch or something in the settlement areas, so we would be picking that up and hopefully bringing that either here or to the Gill Road site where we've been able to take chips to the county. So just a rough idea of what that was. We've put those costs together and what we're pending now, and you know, round numbers, it's roughly 7 grand a day for both of those pieces of equipment and crews. So we're talking that log truck loader, 2 dump trucks, we're talking the chipper truck and a crew to do that work as well, to chip that roadside. And so we had estimated 15 days. I think now it would be less than that. I'm really hoping a lot less than that. Should we engage that? Because obviously the county should have done a lot of this stuff. I'm hoping if we hold off for a few weeks and do this until the county does their pickup. So, you know, I just giving council a rough idea. I was asked a probable cost, and, you know, I would more likely want to go with 7 grand a day. I'm hoping it'll be way less than the 105 and not 15 days. So that's sort of the summary. I think you'll see in the report as well. Our Director of Finance has outlined some cost recovered methodologies in there as well, and he provided that as part of the report. So it's been a 2-department sort of approach to giving you an update. I think it's rather self-explanatory maybe in the finance side, but if you have any questions, I think you can see what the obligations are before we'd be eligible for some funding. And I'm open to any questions. Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you. I can now turn to members of council for comments and questions. Councillor Fisher.
Through you to Director Harvey. So you're suggesting that that Springwater comes in after the county. Is that likely just because they're doing a lighter cleanup and we'd be dealing with the larger debris? Was that the rationale behind that?
Director Harvey?
That through you, Mayor Coughlin, that is correct, Councillor Fisher. We thought that obviously they're much more aligned to doing this kind of work. They knew their routes, and the county has suggested that, they are doing a relatively small cleanup or brush cleanup this week and then a larger one next week. And I think we still might need both of these two-pronged approaches depending on what gets picked up. But I think it would be the best methodology to come back and try and pick both large and small stuff up after the county's done.
Follow on?
So if we were to take that approach and based upon what you said before, the 15 days may look maybe more like 10 days, for example, and $7,000 per day would be sort of a constant fixed cost. Theoretically, we could be 70,000 or less, right, if we were to take this approach.
Director Harvey?
Through Mayor Coughlin, yes, that would be my summary to Councillor Fisher is that, I think more the daily rate is going to be there no matter what we do with that approach. And that seemed to be the most cost effective that our public works staff and supervisors have outlined. So yes, that would be the approach and hopefully that would be the outcome.
Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to Director Harvey. I see within the report it says if council does desire to expedite the brush cleanup in the hardest hit urban areas, there will be this two-phased or two-pronged approach. Would this be available to most urban or settlement areas across the municipality, or would it be very singular focused on more the harder hit areas as indicated?
Director Harvey?
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Garwood, the approach would be to obviously engage the whole township and take a look. Our patrol people with that map are basically outlining the harder hit areas. We obviously prioritize the settlement areas that are hit the hardest and then where we've seen the bulk of the debris. But I think the conversation would be broader, especially since there may be some areas that may need it in the rural areas as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. Through the chair to Director Harvey. So in my community today, the county was there contracting Miller, and they were picking up both large and small brush branches. I did get a notice from them today that they were in my area and that they were doing this and that they'd be coming back next week to get the larger stuff. So the way I interpret it, in all likelihood, that we aren't going to need to do any of this brush pickup, and that is a possibility, correct?
Director Harvey?
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, that is correct. It's a wait and see approach. I would think that that's a good summary. Our patrol would obviously investigate the areas, and there may be an opportunity that we don't have to engage in a lot of this, but I was asked to put something together, and that's what I did for council's consideration.
I have Councillor Alexander and then Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to Director Harvey. Just so I'm clear, when you're talking about the two-prong approach kind of after the county, when you were speaking to Councillor Fisher's question, it was a couple weeks, we thought, because when I just want to ensure if that's the route we go, because in the report it speaks to the county saying that it could take several months for them to finish. So if we're going to move forward with this type of cleanup, I would prefer it was in a couple weeks after, give the county a week or two more maybe. But I don't want to come in and do this 4 months, 5 months down the road. So I just want to clarify, if you could just clarify kind of the time frame you were thinking.
Director Harvey?
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, that's exactly it, Councillor Alexander. When I wrote that report, it's so fluid that, like I said, last Thursday, we got an update. I had no idea when the county was initially coming. And now obviously they've engaged, they've notified us that they're in the township. And the county, it's very fluid. So my anticipation would be that we would do it right after the county per se. I don't anticipate wanting to do this months from now. I was thinking of, looking after the 2 week here and then engaging and seeing with patrol and our work staff, what is left to clean up and where are the hard hit areas and map them out and then strategically go and clean them up. It should be noted that we have noticed that once our staff have been by or our crews have been by, that we are seeing additional things being pulled out to the road. I would like to outline to council that in my estimation, this should be a one-time pickup, if any, and that this isn't going to continue on for months. It's just an observation that Public Works have outlined to me that we are seeing additional things coming out after we've been by.
Counselor Fisher?
There. Just a statement, really. I just fear that if we're pushing it off 2 weeks and we don't exactly know that the county's going to come through for us, again, for the harder hit areas, I would like to see maybe an upset limit of it, and we monitor the situation, and we're not pushing out our response so far. We see what the county does this week, but we do have a response. I'll also say too that I can speak for Midhurst. A week, 10 days ago, it was still quite bad. A lot of homeowners have taken it upon themselves, and frankly, with Gill Road being open, so many people have taken away stuff. So I will say, I mean, my rough estimate is probably 30% of what I saw there a week ago has now disappeared, right? So I don't know if that's factored in as well, but I know for my constituents, 2 weeks from now starting to do something, we've already waited 2 weeks since the ice storm. I'd like to see something enacted so it starts. And as a second point too, and maybe something you can speak to, I have had quite a few people mention, overhanging trees, and they're referred to as widowmakers, right? Overhanging the roads and in parks where limbs have fallen on top of other limbs, and they're a safety concern. I wonder, within that $7,000, would we be able to have arborists come in and take care of those safety concerns?
Director Harvey?
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Fisher. I think the approach that I see would be best to wait for the county to do their works for 2 weeks, because the outline, it's very fluid, that they're picking up more and more each time that we've contacted them or outlined even on their website. So they are doing a smaller brush debris they're outlining this week, and next week the larger debris. And I think that larger debris should take the bulk of what we had. My outline was that we would come with this larger piece of equipment. If there's larger pieces that they didn't pick up, we would pick those up. Anything smaller, we would use the chipper truck coming behind. My concern also would be is just logistics of the county being out there and then, we tripping over each other, for lack of a better term. That's just my thoughts on that. With regards to the widowmakers, we do need to probably go and after we've done the majority of our cleanup here, engage the arborist and the tree specialist to go and deal with the widowmakers. That's what Public Works and our teams have decided is be the best approach. So there will be ongoing work after this cleanup process to deal with those widowmakers. And I think we could obviously look at some of the parks and other things after that, but park staff are here if you'd like. They are already engaged and have got arborists and workers doing works in our parks. So that might be something that Brian could possibly comment on as well.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So just to extend a bit further on Director Harvey's update. So our parks team is out and evaluating parks. Again, they've kind of done the priority pickups of major debris on ground, check playgrounds for safety, and they have currently already addressed some trees with an arborist. So we are working with local arborists who, again, are very engaged in the many different communities right now. So we are looking at the trees from a hazard standpoint. So anything directly over a playground, over an open space that is a hazard, we're addressing as quickly as possible with arborists and or any team members that can address those on site. And I would also mention that even the weather, the windy days like this, we are consistently going back to parks and noticing more and more things that we'll have to continue to clean up through the summer. So we do have a small budget for arborists throughout the annually within our budget for parks cleanup. So we'll be engaging that, but there will be some additional dollars that would be required likely for an arborist this year.
Follow on?
Through you to Director Harvey, would it be possible then, you know, if we're pushing it 2 weeks out for our response, allowing the county to come in and do the smaller debris first week and larger debris, would it be possible for our staff, yourself, to be in contact with them to target certain areas? You know, because just so nothing gets missed, right? Because there are certain areas that are harder hit by others. Is that something you could speak to?
Director Harvey?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Coughlin to Councillor Fisher. I think the approach would be with our active map is to engage the county and outline our harder hit areas with our patrol people. And then obviously put out a response to that. And I think if we work collaboratively, there may be, those timelines may shrink and you may see action sooner than we think. Should the county outline to us that their particular team cannot engage this, we'll have the resources to go and do that work on a much more timely manner.
Manager Dean?
Just a quick addition to Director Harvey there as well. Between the Public Works team and our GIS team, we are taking pictures of some of the hardest hit streets and directly inputting it to a GIS map that the county will have access to as well. So helping the county realize kind of where some of our hardest hit streets are and what the piles look like on those streets. So the county will be able to use that when their teams are coming through. So that's something with some of the mapping and the updates that's also being done in the background.
Councillor Garwood and then Deputy Cooperall.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to Director Harvey. Has staff looked at what other surrounding municipalities have done in regards to their response efforts, understanding that municipality like Ormondonte, for example, would also have county support? They were also significantly affected by the ice storm. So the residents and council can learn a bit more about maybe what others are doing in their response efforts.
Director Harvey?
Through you, Mayor Coughlin to Councillor Garwood, we have engaged a bit with Oro, and I do believe there's been ongoing dialogue at the CIO level as well to engage them and at what their response has been. To date, my understanding is that their response has been similar to ours. They're basically allowing the county to do the work they need, and then they're engaging their staff to do further with contractors. So my understanding is they're using the similar approach to what we're doing.
CAO? Oh, I thought you were nodding your head there.
I can add that the township of Oromodonte continues to be in a state of emergency. My last discussion with their CAO was last Wednesday, and there are still roadways within that township where they're having difficulties getting through. So they've got a lot more work to do than we had. The impact was greater in Oromodonte.
Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I guess listen to what's going on around the table. I'm particularly listening to what Councillor Thompson said about the type of material that the county's been picking up. They're in the area. What I wouldn't want to see is us duplicating the same efforts and spending money to do something that's already being done. I think that staff monitoring, such as you said, the patroller, continuing to do an assessment on where the county is and what they're doing, and then strategically deploying our resources as they're needed for specific areas, especially if we're being in a position where we can actually work with the county to direct them to the hardest hit areas. I think for me, I would kind of like to see that, kind of like a monitoring of what's going on. And I agree with you too that maybe some communication to the public that this is taking place, and also that if they're going to try and put their stuff out, like kind of like garbage day, like if you miss it, you miss it, you know, to let them know that when the work is being done, especially if we're in a position to let them know the areas in advance, and tell them that this is the day or this is the week that it's happening, kind of like Christmas tree pickup. You don't have your tree out in time, so sad, too bad type of thing, because we really cannot afford to keep going back and picking stuff up. I'd like to see us kind of have some kind of an idea on what council would be prepared to move forward with, and then do that assessment, strategic deployment, and utilize the funds as effectively as we can going forward. So that would be my 2 cents on this.
Counselor Thompson and Counselor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I've got a little bit of a different slant on this. I, from the start, never really thought of brush cleanup as being an emergency. When I moved out to Springwater from Barrie, I initially hired an arborist, and so to speak, I picked up both ends of the stick. And, you know, in my community, which has been hit as hard as any community, I've seen a lot of neighbor helping neighbor. I've seen high school kids starting up businesses, private enterprise, and I don't think we should discount that. And so my approach to this is I'd like to see what the county's going to do before we do anything. And I don't really see it as an issue at all. Just a couple of questions. One, through the mayor to Director Harvey. What message do we give? Because there's a lot of confusion out there to a resident that thinks that we are in the private property maintenance business and wants us actually to go on their property and look after some trees that have fallen that maybe even are on township property, but the limbs fell on their property. And secondly, a question to Chief Kirk about the waiving of the fees for the open air fires. I want to know how that's going and if there are any challenges that you guys are facing because of that.
I'll go to Director Harvey first and then Chief Kirk.
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Thompson. So we're actively engaged with our messaging on our communications side, and a lot of the messaging that you're referring to has been relayed. I think we can always do more of that and try and convey that in a perhaps a little bit different manner or repeatedly. So I'll engage with them and see if we can update a bit of that messaging. And that also goes to the Deputy Mayor's comments as it relates to expectations and timelines. Until we had this meeting and such fluid with the county updates, I wasn't sure of when we would provide that messaging, right? Given that the county initially had said they'd be months. The other comment to the Deputy Mayor is we are strategically and effectively trying to work with the county. As Brianna has outlined, they came to us last Thursday night once they said they were coming, and they asked Thursday night and into Good Friday, I was giving them areas that we considered that were the hardest hit. And that's where you're seeing them engaged right now. So they're actively asking and we're participating. And I think the patrol is a key one that we can use to try and update this. So I totally agree with that effective use of our resources.
I lost track here. Oh, Kirk. Thank you, Chief Kirk.
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Councillor Thompson. So in regards to the waiving of the fee for open burning, it has definitely increased our workload because any open burning now has to be inspected to see what they're burning and where they're burning. So that's one thing. Our fire prevention team has been quite busy with this being somewhat of our busy time. We're seeing an increase on burning complaints. And if you recall me saying when I did my presentation last week, is that tree was alive, a few weeks ago, and it's green. So when you try to burn green wood, obviously you're going to get a lot of smoke. And part of the bylaw is you are in control of your smoke. So if it's hindering somebody's health and enjoyment of their property, you're responsible for that. So, and then the other thing we're seeing is people coming into the office. They have found out that the open burn permits are free. We're getting some flack from residents in regards to their having to pay for their recreational permit. So then when they find out they're free, they're not demanding, they're asking for an open burn permit. And in some cases, they don't qualify for an open burn permit. And just for council's knowledge, if you don't know, there's a document out there with our bylaw that itemizes the properties that are able to have open burn permits and those that are restricted areas. And that last time, that was set by council with our engagement. And that was last done in 2017. So while we're on that topic, I think it's time that the fire department brings forward a new proposal to council so you can adopt or reject. And being sensitive, obviously, to the farmers. If they are reclaiming farmland in a built-up area, we try to work with the farmers on that, in that regard, to, you know, reclaiming farmland or cleaning up fence rows. But there's a lot of properties out there that don't qualify for an open burn. And we take the heat for that from the citizens. So it's a balancing act, right? So.
Counselor Garwood, Counselor Fisher, Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Really how I see this is I really look at it as a balance between expectation and financial implications to the municipality as a whole. I go back to my question earlier on about our neighbors in Oro-Medonte and other municipalities who are in a far worse position than we are as a municipality, understanding that we do have county resources here to assist us. If I can, through the mayor, understanding our director of finance is not here right now, I might direct this to the CAO, and I don't want to put him on the spot here, but understanding in the report the financial implications and provincial financial assistance information is outlined for the public. Could you potentially provide a bit of an overview, understanding that we do need to operate in the assumption that these costs, including the $156,000 that's been spent to date and a potential other 105 or more or less that could be coming, could be absorbed by the municipality should we not qualify for the municipal disaster recovery assistance program. So if you could just provide a bit of an overview for the residents just to understand the financial implications associated with this.
CEO Heron.
Thank you, Your Worship. And in response to Councillor Garwood and for the benefit of the public, the province has a disaster financial relief program. In the previous meeting, the treasurer did indicate that there is no guarantee that the township will receive financial relief from the province through this program. Some of the criteria and stipulations are that if the township had to purchase materials to address the emergency response or the emergency recovery, those materials are considered capital and there is no financial relief for that. So for instance, we were required to buy chainsaws. You noticed in the PowerPoint, we bought a chipper. We cannot get financial relief for the province for that because the province considers it a capital, something that will benefit the township moving forward. We are able to charge for overtime hours that are directly related to the emergency event. We're not able to charge for hours during the regular day because for the province's point of view, it's just part of our job to show up. That's a harsh way to say it, even though we had to drop everything else that we do in the normal course of the event to address this. So there are criteria that are and are not chargeable. The financial recovery from the province does not kick in until we, the township, reach a 3% percentage of our taxable revenue, which equates to a little over $500,000. So the township would have to show that its costing to respond to this event would be over $500,000 before we could even make an application to the province for financial relief. Once we do, there's a tiered availability of financial funds to the township. So again, there's not a guarantee that we would be able to recover the entire cost of what we have spent and continue to spend in terms of recovery and response. So suffice it to say, there is no guarantee that the province will be providing financial relief for this. The township will be, we are cataloging all of our costs, including the costs that we put forward during our regular daily hours. Whether we can charge it or not, we want to have a true accounting for all the cost and effort that's gone forward. The finance department has put together a separate account just for this. And we will be making an application. The township has 3 months from the date the event started to submit an application, which is not a long time. As we've heard, there is a high likelihood that we may be still in recovery 3 months in. We've yet to see that. The progress has definitely picked up in terms of picking up the brush and the wood that's being brought to the road. But what we're finding is that as everything is fluid, as we go along the roadway and pick up the brush, we're finding that behind it, more brush is being brought out. So we can expect that to happen in the urbanized areas once the county goes through. And once we go, if council decides that we're going to do this as well, and as a follow through, there's going to be a continuous amount of debris being brought to the roadway. I expect that would diminish over time, but the work will continue. So there's a quick synopsis of how the funding program works with the province. There's a full-on application that has to be made. We are in contact with Ministry of Municipal Affairs staff, and I can advise that as of last week, the Township of Oro-Medonte sent a letter to the province asking them to create a higher level emergency, which would alleviate some of these conditions for financial release. I'm not aware of any response from the province on that, but certainly there is an effort there to mitigate some of the municipal tax dollars that are being put towards the effort.
And if I can, I'll just add to that in conversation with CEO Aiken today, looking as if we were a city or if we were responsible for our own waste management, would we be able to apply that cost to meet that threshold? So the county is looking into the possibility of assigning, not actually charging it to us, but trying to figure out if we can qualify because they are our waste provider. And I do have a meeting set up with Downey for this week to try and get to the Minister Flack to request an extension, because this isn't a immediate one and done event. This is something that's going to take us a long time. And if we have to put in our application, we could potentially miss out on another month or two of costs associated to meet that threshold. So just to attempt to get an extension on that. Further to that, I was conversation with CEO Aiken today just about thanking them for getting to Springwater. He did say that the initial plan, and this is not official, the official plan is to go through and do the loop, like the 2-week loop, and then to reassess and come back potentially again before the end of May. That was when they're saying a couple months, they were talking about multiple times coming through and that they would be providing us with communication as that happens. I did ask him point blank, I'm like, is there anything else that Springwater can do to help out with this? And he said, just send us a thank you card. So, Councillor Fisher and Deputy Cabral.
Yeah, no, what I said, a little bit shocked by some of the comments around the table. 2 weeks ago, the storm was a big deal to us. Now I'm hearing that other municipalities had it worse, and that it's not our responsibility. I can tell you in Midhurst, which does border on Oro, I can say without a doubt, in terms of wards, we were hit the worst in Springwater. And I drove within the first 48 hours every ward in Springwater. The debris is still there, and I can tell you, we offer assistance in many different ways for many different things, and throughout the year. I can definitely tell you it would be very disappointing for people in Midhurst listening to those comments, a little bit shocking and maybe even a bit hurtful. we need help. We needed help then, and we've been patient. I take phone calls every day and get emails every day from people who are concerned about safety issues. They have large amounts of debris. I'm okay with waiting for the county and committing with them, but the downplaying of the importance of it, I can't stand for that. Midhurst was hit particularly hard, and other municipalities, Barrie, for example, they're picking up everything. So they stepped up to the plate. I think we should as well. I'm okay with waiting for the county as long as we communicate with them and it's done in a timely fashion, and we know they will pick up the large debris. But to say we weren't hit hard, I can tell you, I near broke my back, cleaning up debris that day, at those days, right? So this is not something 2 weeks goes by and we get to forget how bad it was in certain areas. Friends and neighbors have stood up and they have helped, and people have gotten rid of their own debris, but in no way were we hit less hard, certainly not in Midhurst than other areas. So that is not true.
Deputy Correll.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Whether we were hit hard or whatever, we were. And, it was obviously in the Midhurst area more significant because it's an urban area. I mean, we had damage in rural areas too, but it was pockets here, there, and everywhere. What I would like to see, and I think this council was pretty much on board with it when we had our first meeting to let the residents know that we were going to be trying to put something together. What I find now is, yes, the county's stepping up to the plate big time. I don't think we should duplicate necessarily what they're doing, but I would like to see some threshold or some kind of financial point or level that we can agree on going forward so that our public works people can actually, assess and strategically deploy as necessary. I mean, the whole idea here is if we can reduce township costs, then that's how we do it. And if we wait a week or two and see how the pickup's going with the county, that's great. But I would still like to see us at some point at this meeting say to our public works staff, we're going to give you an upset limit of this. If it goes beyond that, you'll have to come back, but at least you'll have something to move forward with. And you know what? If they don't have to use it at all, that's great. But if they do, I think we owe it to the residents to have it available to them. So those are my final comments.
I have Councillor Alexander and then Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I would agree with the Deputy Mayor. I think to piggyback off the county is a good approach. I think when we communicate, and again, I haven't seen a lot of the communication, but I think it needs to be specifically from us if we are going to go out and follow the county because they're not quick enough. And by not quick enough, I understand they have a whole county to do. So, if they can't get, in the timely fashion, I think we need to communicate to the residents when we will be coming. This isn't as simple as taking your garbage out for people. There's people that are still doing yard work cleanup. If they knew it was coming in 2 weeks, then you're giving them the time to do the work on their own property, because it's certainly not our job to go out to their property and to get it to the curb. We can't be giving them 2 days notice. People work, people are elderly, they need other people to help them. And again, in terms of picking it up on the curbside, I do think that is our responsibility. Obviously, let's work with the county to mitigate our costs. That's what we're here for. Not everyone has a truck. Not everyone has a way of getting off their property. And if they don't, I can tell you what will happen in neighborhoods, such as kind of some of the ones that in my ward, is they won't be open burns, but people will be having fires to burn that brush. And it is not the way we want them to do it, to the deputy chief or to the chief's point, but that is what people will do. If they know it's not getting picked up, they're just going to burn it. And I think that could cause us more problems down the line. But yeah, I am in agreement with, I think it's a great idea to set an upset limit at this meeting and kind of a time frame of when, we are comfortable telling our staff to maybe move forward after giving the county a bit more time. So we don't have to meet again, if you will. And, when staff feels it's necessary, we can just go out and get the work done.
Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and to both Councillor Alexander and the Deputy Mayor's comments. I completely agree. I think putting this in staff's hands to make the appropriate decision makes the most sense, while also allowing staff to monitor our partners at the county to ensure that, again, as the Deputy Mayor had mentioned, we're not duplicating service. I think, again, looking a bit backwards here, nobody said that this was not a big deal and that our community was not hit harder or hit hard. We have to stop looking at things by a ward approach. We are one council, one municipality that represents all residents. Our decisions up here affect everybody. So whether it's Midhurst or Elmville or everyone in between, we are here to support our residents. But there is also a difference in opening roads that are closed by trees and picking up brush at the end of driveways. There is a difference. No one is saying that it's not important to clear our communities, but there is a significant difference in that approach. But I'm happy with that. I'm happy to support what the Deputy Mayor is recommending and ensuring that we are communicating timelines to our residents as well.
Thank you. I'll turn to Councillor Fisher. Is there a specific number that you would like?
Certainly, yeah. I think if we went to the upset limit of $100,000, of course, if our staff monitor that and only deploy those funds if needed, again, working with the county all the way along, and then of course only taking from it if needed.
I'm just gonna look for a head nod from Director Harvey. And I will then turn to our clerk for a draft resolution. And look at that. So this is that the presentation regarding the significant weather event, ice storm recovery from the Director of Public Works and Infrastructure be accepted or received. Thank you. And that council hereby direct staff to continue to monitor and collaborate with the county cleanup efforts and implement the proposed plan should staff deem it required after the 2-week period to an upset limit of $100,000, and that engage qualified contractors to assist in the cleanup of overwhelming branches and limbs in public spaces. That's captured. It says overhanging. I did say overwhelming. Thank you. Overhanging, overwhelming and overhanging. So there we are. Any other comments or questions on this? Anything further from staff? CEO Heron?
Thank you, Worship. There was considerable discussion about communicating to the public a defined start date. In reading the draft resolution, could the wording be amended a bit so that it's a very defined start date? I think the reference is 2 weeks, but 2 weeks from when and to when?
Thank you. And then, so the 2-week period was just allowing the county to have 2 weeks, and then it would be reassessed by staff. And at that time, we could make a decision as to what date we would notify our residents to say, have everything out by this day because we're coming. And I think that was the intent. Not seeing anything further. I'll have that moved by Councillor Fisher, seconded by Councillor Garwood. All those in favor? And that has carried. We'll now move on to our confirmation bylaw, please. Mover and seconder, Councillor Moore, Councillor Alexander, that the bylaw 2025-037 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council, the special meeting held on April 22nd, 2025, listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? That has carried. And a mover and seconder for adjournment, please. Deputy Cabral and Councillor Garwood, that the special meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 6:18 to meet again on the regular meeting on May 7th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Thank you.